So my name is Alejandro Bugacov, and I'm work as a data scientist at the FaceBase Hub located at USC ISI also. So I'm going to share my screen and talk about exporting data and how to request human subject data. So let me share my screen. Okay, so I don't know if you can see my screen, but I will start by...
Do you want to put it in presentation mode?
Yeah, maybe I will put it in presentation mode. Okay.
Perfect.
So, so I will first talk a little bit on these slides, and then we'll go over to the browser and demonstrate you how to do this. But there are basically two ways of extracting data. When we say data, I mean the actual data files, data that you want to work with, besides what you can see in the browser, something you're gonna download to your computer, to your machine, so that you will do some of your own processing. So one way is basically the individual file download. So wherever you go to an asset, to a data set, and you see a file, and you will see a blue link highlighted, you can just click on that and it will download. The other, and you don't need to be logged in order to do that. You just any user can basically download the file. The next mode of downloaded data is what we call the bulk export, where you're downloading a collection of data. One is to download it in CSV form, basically in tabular, comma-separated value form, something you can easily load into a spreadsheet. And that's mostly used to download the results from a search. So if you perform one of these searches, kind of like following some of the methods that Rob talked about, then you will come to a set of results, and then you can select to download that, and that will download the whole metadata information about that result set. Basically, the name of the data set, the project that created the data set, all the information associated to that result set. The next one, and the most interesting form, that is something that we provide that it's very useful, is what we call a BD bag, which is a big data bag. And this is very useful to download all data, basically also, besides the metadata, all the actual assets, all the actual files, all the data either from a data set that you picked, or you can actually do this at the project level. So you can actually go to a project and download all the data sets and all the data from those data sets for that project. This is a very robust tool, okay, that performs data validation. It shows you the status and the progress of the download. And if you, for some reason, get disconnected and fail, sometimes it can be very large data sets with a lot of data, then you don't have to start from all over again. The tool will restart from where it left off. Now, for this, you need to be logged in as a FaceBase user. So if you're not a FaceBase user, you will have to go through the sign up process, get your FaceBase user credentials, and then once you logged in, you will be able to download this DB bag or CSV downloads. And basically, the BD bag export is basically a two-step process. First, you download the BD bag, which is basically a zip file, into your computer. This is a small file that has information on where to fetch the files from. And then the second step, you will use one of our tools that we call the Deriva bag tool to export all the data, basically to fetch all the data files with the information given in that initial zip file that you downloaded. And then later I will show how to install this tool, but now I'm going to make a short demonstration of how to use it. The documentation for that is in our help section of the website. So now let me move back to the browser. I will start the session. FaceBase. I will go to, so first I can, so right now I'm not logged in, so I'm just a regular user, and I can go to any data set. First I'm going to show how to download the individual file download. I can basically browse the data set, and then if I find an individual file that I like, let's say I want to download this mesh, I just click on it and the file will download to my computer. If I go to my download, I can see that file's been downloaded. So that's one way. The other way will be if I, for example, go back to all data sets, and let's say I'm interested in all ChIP-seq assays, and this is the results from my query. I can try to export this either as a CSV or as a bag. But in order to do this, I will first need to log in. So I will log in as a user. That I'm already registered as. And then I can go export, and I can download this as a CSV file. And then this is basically a tabular data that I can probably open with Excel sheet if I want. And we'll have basically some basic information about all these data sets, their descriptor, their record ID, their description, their study design, project, etc. Okay, so that's probably not the most interesting part. The most interesting part is the BD bag that I want to demonstrate. For that, I will probably pick again one of the data sets. This is actually one of our newest data sets that we have some very interesting surface meshes that show different at different time steps the meshes for affected and unaffected mouse for some mutation that they are studying. But anyway, so this is a fairly complex data set that has several meshes and visualizations, several experiments, several biosamples. And so let's say I can try to get all this data instead of having to try to go file by file and download one file at a time. I can decide to, okay, I'm going to download the whole thing and leave it and keep it organized the way it's supposed to be. So I will export this as what we call a BD bag. So first step, I download that file into my computer. So it's called dataset, and then the record ID, and it's a zip file. So the next thing what I will do is I will probably move that data set, that is zip file that I have in my download folder, I will probably move it to a place that I know it's easier for me to find it, and also the place where I would like it to end up being at once I export the data. So I just move it to a folder that I created. It's called export for this specific case. And then the next thing I will do is I will start this application that we provide that is called is one of our Deriva client tools. Later I will explain how to install and where to get all these tools. And I will start the BDBag application. So once the tool starts, it gives us some interface to navigate to the place where you have your bag. So I know there is end users, my username. I know that I put it under this FaceBase folder. Bootcamp. You had to go through this navigation exercise, but then once you find the file, you select the file, and basically you have a few options here. One is extract, will basically give you a picture of what the data looks like, but doesn't actually bring or fetches the data. And then there is this other option called materialize. That's a term that's technically used, which basically materialize this bag into these actual files and download and fetches the files. So I'll start the tool. It probably take a little bit. These are actually some large files, just realize. But anyway, so this is basically taking the information that is in this zip file and going to the actual location where the files resides in our server and start bringing one file at a time. And it uses a pretty consistent mechanism that it checks for the sums, the checksums of each of the files, and so it's very robust. If for some reason there was some interruption in the connection, or if the file gets corrupted in some way, this will detect it and tell you, the file is corrupted. This is not the file that you were supposed to get, and it will give you an error message that in this console that you can then copy and paste into an email to us and say, okay, this, I'm having this issue. Can you please look into it? And that's typically how we go about. So it's pretty more interesting and useful than just going on the browser one by one and downloading the file. And if for some reason you get disconnected, you don't know whether your file is correct or not. So this is actually a sufficiently pretty big data set, and you see in a couple of seconds it had actually already downloaded the whole data. And then once it ends downloading the data, so now it's probably doing some of the checks. So now it has finished, almost finished there. Okay. We can go through okay, now it has finished, and it's verifying the checksum of every file, and we get a message saying the bag materialization complete, so we know that everything went fine. So now I can go back to my computer and look into the data set and see that, look where the location where I downloaded the data, and there is a folder for that data set. It has some information about the bag itself, a manifest with the checksum for each of the files, and then it has one folder with actual data and another folder with all the metadata from the data set. So I can go into the data and we see organize it by data types. So we have this, in this case, it only has mesh data. So we go there and we actually see all the actual data files.
Alejandro, could you increase
Oh,
the
sorry about
view
that.
tab?
Yeah, sorry about that. Completely forgot about that. Is that better?
It's a little better.
Let me see if I can. Not sure if that's a little bit better. But anyways, so basically what I see now is all the data has been downloaded and is organized in the way that we want to see. And we have also the information about the biosamples, the data set, the experiments, all the data, all the, information that we want about the data set. So if there's no questions about that, I will probably continue to the next topic, which is requesting human subject data.